First of all, I'm going to draw the outline or the silhouette of the face. For this, I'm using the pencil tool and with the settings to have it editable, so it keeps it a single line. If you don't have this set up already, just double click on the pencil tool in the toolbar and choose keep selected and edit selected paths options. And as you can see, I'm just drawing over the details. I will just rotate my view a bit and then drawing this way. Because I'm using a stylus, it's just easier to do it in certain angles. And here it doesn't really matter how I finish off the path because that section won't be visible. And I'm happy with the way this looks, so I'm going to continue drawing a new path now for the eyebrows. I just draw the silhouette again with the pencil tool, and I try to keep things nice and organic. Here is the other eyebrow. We'll zoom a bit closer, draw over it, and I just go beyond the edges because of course we can cut these off with the shape builder tool. So if I select all the paths so far I created, I can hold down the Alt key and subtract those shapes. Now I can just select the two eyebrows and press Shift X to switch the stroke and fill colors. And then I'm using a bit of the simplify option to have less anchor points on the shapes that I created. Here's a few lines I'm going to add around the lips and the nose. I'm not going to draw all the lines that I created in my sketch, just certain parts of it, and then I will use shading later to define these forms more. So I don't want everything to have outlines around it. I'm drawing a few more lines around the eyes. Again, not trying to create completely filled shapes, just trying to emphasize the most important details with my lines. Like this one can be a bit thicker. I drew an outline for it and I'm going to adjust it later on. Let's just draw another shape here for the eyelid, the upper eyelid. And I feel like that is looking quite good already. Now it's time to draw the neck. Once more, I just extend beyond the lines that I need, and then I will be able to cut off what's not necessary, but we can come back to that later. Now here I'm using the pen tool to draw these lines for the shape outside. Then switching back to the pencil again, I'm using additional lines for the hair a bit better, and then just adding a few more lines for the shapes in the background. There's another shape there which I am going to turn into a filled shape later on, but for now I'm just trying to get these larger shapes in first, and I'm doing pretty much everything with the pencil tool here. I like to work with the pencil tool when I want to keep things more organic, and then as you can see sometimes I switch to the pen tool to draw some additional details, like these sharp straight lines. It's definitely easier to do with the pen tool. There is another bigger shape there on the top which I want to lay down, and now that's also in place. We can probably also add this other line here, another diagonal line that runs down, which will be important. So we can actually connect this into this other shape that we have. Okay, so I feel like that's already starting to give us the structure. Maybe here on the right side, we need this other shape as well, which we can actually combine with this more organic detail. And I'm switching back and forth between the pencil and the pen tool, depending on which one is easier to work with. And I can also refine some of these details just to match my sketch a bit better. And I don't want to have too much messy anchor points, so sometimes I like to have them tidied up. I just use the eraser tool there and connected the two anchor points, so that's also connected. This time I'm going to use the blob brush tool because I need to create a filled shape, and I feel like this works better this way. So I'm just going to paint in these details for the hair. This is more like a shading detail, but I feel like it's good to establish this in the beginning. And draw over this section here. Now select these two and simplify them with the path, object path simplify option. And then with the eraser tool, I just delete some parts of it. Like that. Make some parts of it more sharp. Because that's one thing about the blob brush tool, that you end up having everything very soft and rounded if you use it. And then it's always good to add some angles on it just to have a bit more contrast for the shape. And now we're just going to do the same thing here again. Another detail, I'm using again the blob brush tool. Then I will smooth it and simplify it. And then using the eraser tool, I can add some angles back on it. That looks better. Now we can draw the eye details. We have the iris, and then we have the other detail. Again, I'm using the eraser tool to cut off the parts that I don't need. I don't need to be very accurate here because we can always adjust these at a later point. And then I'm just going to select these lines that I created earlier, and I want to adjust their settings a bit. So I'm going to set them to this non-uniform shape. Also increase the stroke size on them so they are more noticeable. So I'm using the shape builder to cut off any lines that we won't need. And I'm also merging some of these shapes together, which will make it easier later to colorize them. Like this one here, I want to have as a single shape. That's why I use the shape builder to connect them to each other. Now moving on, we will also use the shape builder tool to remove some of these details that we don't need, like these lines right here at the bottom. I'm just going to use Alt or Option key, quickly subtract the ones that I don't need. So these overshoot details I can just remove one by one. And now it's time to merge some of these details together. So I just paint over the shapes. So I'm just painting over this part here. I'm connecting these two shapes and then filling in that section. And this is going to be a single shape, so it can always be refined later with the eraser tool on the top. And I feel like it looks quite good already. And then join it together with the other big shape. Using the shape builder tool, we can use also a bit of simplify or smooth on it. And now it's time to move on and work a little bit on the face. So I apply the skin color and then also start adding some of the colors for these other shapes. So I'm introducing the additional colors I prepared in my swatches panel. Here's another bigger shape, which I'm going to fill in with the color I wanted to use. Now for this other shape, I'm going to use the blue color that we have in our swatches. We can decide this later, but for now, I'm just going to keep it blue. And then we have a shape here that we don't actually need. I can remove that. We will have to add a few more lines to define details like the eyes. So for this, I'm going to use a white color, which we don't have actually in the swatches panel. So I just created it. And I'm going to use the pen tool to draw over the area where I want the eye to be, the white of the eye. I'm going to use the white fill for it. So here's the pen tool. I'm drawing over it and going down, following the shape. And then again, fill it in with white and make sure it ends up in the right place. So underneath those darker details, we can check without the sketch. And we are getting there slowly. So let's keep moving. I am going to add the reflection on the eyes. So there's a bit of a yellow here, a bit of a yellow on the other side. We will refine these later.